So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and for your interest in the Treatment Pathways Program. TPP is what we refer to it as, is a pretrial diversionary program that identifies nonviolent substance abuse addicted offenders who wind up in jail, and we quickly connect them with services, treatment, and support. My name is Beth Pizzuto. I'm the Chief Court Administrator of the Judicial Branch, and I'm very pleased to introduce to you Michael Hines to my left. He is the director of our pretrial services. Mike played an instrumental part in the development, deployment, and expansion of TPP. He's with us here today and has prepared a 35 minutes PowerPoint that provides information on the process, and you'll also hear from some program participants. So Mike, without further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to you, and thank you for preparing the program.
Thanks, Judge Pizzuto, and thanks for everyone in attendance today. I want to first walk you just through the outline that we're going to try. Okay, thank you, Representative Callahan. I appreciate that. We're going to talk a little bit about the program and the background on how we got started. We'll talk about our screening process, which is a big part of this, identifying the right person and people that will go into the program. I'll share with you some quick stats that we have. They go back to 2015 through 2023 since the program's inception. I want to talk a little bit about our teaming aspect, which is something unique to a diversionary program. And then obviously give you an opportunity to ask any questions or comments along the way. We start with Connecticut's opioid problem. So in 2014, opioid-related emergency room visits were 255 per 100,000 individuals in Connecticut. The U.S. average is 178 to 100,000 individuals. 2012 through 2021, accidental opioid deaths increased from 357 to 1,531. Department of Corrections estimated that returning citizens are 8 to 10 to 11 times more likely than the general population to suffer an overdose. In 2019, 55% of the overdose deaths in Connecticut had a Connecticut Department of Corrections number. So this is how we start. So late in 2014, I'm sitting in my office. I'm asked to go into a conference room. In that conference room is our Chief State's Attorney, Kevin Kane, Dr. Kathleen Maurer from the Department of Corrections, who is the Director of Addiction Services, and our Chief Criminal Administrative Judge, Robert Devlin. And they're talking to me about a problem that they're seeing in Department of Corrections in Bridgeport, where 150 opioid and alcohol dependent individuals are kind of cycling through DOC. So they're the folks that when the judge is about ready to call their case, he doesn't need the clerk to read their name because he remembers them from 4 months ago. And they cycle and cycle and cycle through. But what they're doing is they're taking up a lot of space in our MAT unit within Bridgeport Corrections. So as they come in, the Department of Corrections wants to dose the individuals as they're leaving. But these pretrial folks that are coming in are taking up a number of those slots, and they're trying to reduce that. So the conversation, what they're talking to me a little bit about is, I want you to identify these individuals at arraignment, their first court appearance shortly after they get arrested, and try to divert them into a diversionary program. Ask the court for a promise to appear. The issue with that is that these individuals have significant criminal histories, large criminal histories that include a number of failure to appear, but they're charged with low-level crimes, larceny 6, criminal trespass, they're breaking into vacant houses to use, possession of narcotics, but they're using the Department of Corrections as almost a part of their habit. So they're using DOC to kind of get clean. So they go in, they take small periods of incarceration, because the unique thing in this population is to be eligible for this program, you cannot have a violent arrest in your history. And that's who we're trying to divert, not folks that are dangerous when we put them out into the community. With folks that are just stumbling through life, have had a couple of bites at the apple, but nothing has seemed to work. So we start a pilot. We end up speaking with some folks, the federal welfare department in Washington. Dr. Maurer brings them to DOC. And we get some money through the Task Foundation in Chicago to pilot this program in Bridgeport. And what I want to talk a little bit about is, we're, again, as difficult as it was for me to kind of talk my staff into kind of going away from what we traditionally do with this population because of their history of failing to appear in court. We're looking for a recommendation based on the level of motivation during our interview to get these folks diverted. But I also have to talk, even though I had the chief state's attorney with us, we got to talk to the state's attorney, the public defenders, and the judges into it. So we start off slow. I just want to tell a quick story and then I'm going to move on. One of the, because we started off slow, Judge Devlin said, we were about 8 months into the program. And Judge Devlin said, let's get together and take a look at some of the stats and some of the stories it's these individuals. So we run through similar to what I'm going to run through with you today, but we bring in a client and everybody is sitting around at a place in Bridgeport called Murphy's Law, and we're doing a presentation. And we have an individual stand up and he talks about his history. And he said, for 24 years, my family gave up on me. And this weekend, I was invited to a family reunion. And he said, I also want to tell you, for 24 years, I haven't had a job and I'm here on my lunch break. Immediately, the table that had all the judges on it, all 4 hands go up. And they all said, what was different this time than all the other times you had an opportunity? And he said, for the first time, I really felt like a team of people cared about me. And from that point on, the referrals started to click in Bridgeport, and we started diverting more and more individuals. 2017, with the success in Bridgeport, in 2017, I received a phone call from a Judge Danaher, who was sitting up in Litchfield and wanted to talk to me. And he said to me, how do I get this program into the Torrington courthouse? And so at that point, I knew we were doing something right. And so we ended up having some success in Bridgeport and showing that success. And then in 2017, we expand to New London, Torrington, and Waterbury with some state opioid response money that we got through DEMAS. And then in 2019, with the help of our partners at Central Connecticut State University, we applied for a federal grant, and we are awarded this assistance funding to study those 4 sites that we have on. In 2022, because of the success of the program, we move on to 4 additional locations: Danielson, Manchester, New Britain, and New Haven. And that was with some McKinsey settlement money that was filtered through the department, through Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services as well. So the locations, as I indicated, in 15 we're in Bridgeport. We go to New London and Torrington in 17, and ultimately to Waterbury in 18. And now we are also in Danielson, Manchester, New Britain, and New Haven. The funding sources have been the Task Foundation, our state opioid response money, which is the opioid distributor settlement. Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services was looking over that money, so that's who filtered it to the branch. We do receive $1.5 million in 2019 from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And then we, as I mentioned, McKinsey money as well. In October of 2023, the BJA grant ended, so there was a gap there. We needed to fund the clinicians for the last 9 months. Judicial threw in $300,000 to keep that going. Some of the state opioid response money included dollars for recovery coaches that I do want to talk to you a little bit about. And all the funding expires this June 2024 for all the programs. Our objectives are straightforward. We were looking to redirect the population with low-level, nonviolent, and non-weapon related crimes who have substance use disorders. We want to increase the opportunity for incarcerated clients to access MAT. And as you'll see in some of the stats I show you, that that's a big component of this program. And we want to safely reduce the DOC population and reduce costs of incarceration to the state of Connecticut. I want to just allow you to hear a little bit about the program and not just hear me speak.
The Treatment Pathways Program, also known as TPP, is an innovative, uniquely designed program to divert nonviolent offenders living with substance use disorder. TPP began in the New London County in 2017 with just a handful of clients. The intent of the program is to give the option of treatment rather than simple incarceration. This program gives them an alternative option, a way to break free from the cycle.
That's a clinician that we had at SCAD in New London. I'll talk to you a little bit about the screening process. So when you're arrested at night and held as a custodial arrest, you're brought into, and we use Bridgeport as the example because we've been talking about Bridgeport. You're brought into the Bridgeport courthouse, and we're going to do an evaluation on you, an assessment. So we go through our assessment, and we're looking for, certainly, the purpose of bond is to ensure your appearance in court. But again, this population is not going to fall into that category of probably should be released on a premise to appear. We know their history, but again, part of that history does not include a history of violence. But what we're looking for here is a level of motivation, because a number of these individuals that have gone through this program have had opportunities in the past, but have stumbled. If we think they're appropriate, we will have a clinician that's working out of our office go into the lockup and do an evaluation. She's also, or he's also, looking for that level of motivation. At the end of that conversation, the pretrial staff and the clinician will get together and they'll discuss, should we be moving forward or not? One of the things that we wanted to make sure was we didn't want, when we talked to our staff, we didn't want this to be a free lunch. I didn't want the staff going in front of the judge and asking every person that is either alcohol or opioid addicted, yeah, let's recommend him, let's recommend her, because we wanted the right person in the program. And it's hard in that period, and you'll see, we knew we weren't going to save them all, but man, we had an opportunity to put a dent in some of the issues that these people had, and we thought it was important. So a decision is made at that time after that conversation that we work with our clinician. And if we feel they're appropriate, we'll move forward and make a recommendation to the court at arraignment for the judge's final approval. There's times that the judge agrees with us. There's times that the judge doesn't agree with us. But the call from Judge Danaher was a big call for me, because I knew he had heard from another judge that this program had some legs to it. And so we knew that when he called, we were on our way. Defendants held and or released on bond are eligible. And when I say that, there are individuals that end up at arraignment in the audience because they were released by the police department. But as an example, if the court may see them nodding off in court or think they have a significant substance abuse or alcohol problem, they'll ask the clinician to do a screening on that individual and then come back. So they may add the condition to TPP. Majority of our clients are coming directly out of lockup. Here's a couple of clients that we're going to talk about.
It was introduced to me in the court. I was told that I was on conditional release and that these would be the contacts that I needed to keep in touch with. Courtney's name was on that, and Frank De Jesus.
So how was the TPP program described to you?
It was described as, while you're on conditional release, these are people that you need to keep posted about everything that you're doing in your day-to-day programs, updates on the programs that you've been required to take, Um, tell them how you're doing in general, how you're feeling. Let them know about the family life, which they all got to know about me very well. And we formed a relationship, which was so gratifying and so supportive that I am grateful every day. The people who are part of the program, I guess, largely have been in recovery themselves, and they understand, and they have a complete connection with you about success of this malady. And it is one of the things that has made all things possible for me in terms of becoming a person in recovery, admitting that that's who I am.
Before I start talking about our federal evaluation, one of the things that Susan was talking about there were people that have kind of lived their life. And so when we received some sort of money to enhance this BJA grant that we received, that money was for a recovery coach. And I'm not ashamed to tell you that I was a little bit hesitant at that at first. I didn't know much about recovery coaches. And I knew that my concern was, what's this going to do to the program? How's it going to affect our program? I can tell you today, as I sit here, it would be a tough call to tell you who the MVP of the team is, but I'll tell you right now, that the recovery coach is an instrumental part of this program, because that ride from the courthouse to a detox with a recovery coach and someone that's been addicted for as long as they have is maybe the most important ride to see if we're going to get them in or not, because that conversation is important and it's powerful. So I want to say that because I was hesitant at first. Dr. Stephen Cox is here from Central Connecticut State University. We partnered with Dr. Cox. I also have Bethany LaPierre here, who's our grant coordinator, and she oversaw this grant. Without their help, we'd be in trouble. They did an outstanding job, and BJA gave us the evaluation, and Dr. Cox went through it. And despite some of the challenges we got, because we received the grant in the end of 2019, and it went through 2023, and COVID obviously had an impact. There was some success here. This was measuring just 4 of our locations. But I want to go through just some of the stats that they found. The ability to reduce the pretrial incarceration population. 78% of the clients would have likely been recommended for a financial bond without this diversion. Okay, so that means 78% of these people fell into that category after we did an assessment that showed they were a risky population. And without this program, we might not move forward. Immediate access to treatment was something that Judge Devlin was adamant about. Right now, if I recommend a promise to appear with somebody that may not have the level of need and send them to an ABH provider, they're probably going to make their appointment in 3 days. But one of the things we wanted to do with this program is we didn't want the client leaving the courthouse without the clinician or the recovery coach. We wanted a warm handoff, because this population is the type of group that if you tell them to be at 1051 Main Street in an hour for an evaluation, a full evaluation, or to get a ride to a detox, by the time they walk down Golden Hill Street in Bridgeport, we lost them. They're going to think one of 2 things. They're going to think I can use it because I'm going into treatment. But once they use, they're going to think, well, I can go in 3 days, right? And that 3 days turns into 3 weeks, and then we lose them. So we wanted a warm handoff. All right. 95% of our clients had contact with our ABH treatment provider within 1 business day of the TPP being ordered by the court. 91% showed up for that ABH appointment. Maintaining a client completion rate comparable to the national average of our drug court programs. It was very evident to me when Judge Pizzuto and Judge Carroll kind of came to us and said, listen, we're going to move away from a drug court. Okay, we're going to try this instead. And the reason is An average drug court costs somewhere around $750,000, okay, across the state. A drug court carries one location. This program is $100,000 for a clinician, $60,000 for a recovery coach. And by doing it for less, we can expand the blueprint in Connecticut. So we have, instead of one drug court in a large city, we have 8 locations that have been identified as hotspots for opioid overdoses that we're located in. So that was something that we had a lot of conversations about, and there's a lot of great things. I'm not here to say drug court doesn't work, but we felt that we could reach more people in Connecticut for less money. This led to a higher rates of nollies and case dismissals for clients completing the TPP. So if you went from arraignment to disposition, 44% of the successful completers in TPP received a nollie or a dismissal by the court. And that's a huge thing. The evaluators, Dr. Cox and his team, attributed TPP success to a high quality teaming approach that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. I'm going to walk you through some quick stats, and I know I just went through some stats, and they're a little different because we're going from 2015 to 2023, and we're incorporating all 8 locations. But some of these stats are telling, and I want you to remember that this is a group that, again, had a history of new arrests and failure to appear. So these are our riskiest group that we're measuring. So our screenings, we did 2,871 screenings. 1,645 were entered into the program. Again, I remember I talked about that free lunch, that I did not want people just recommending everyone for this. So I was happy to see that a number of these folks that we screened, we didn't think were motivated enough to finish the program. Except access to treatment. And I can't tell you that COVID didn't have a little impact on that, but 62% of the folks we were able to get in that same day of arraignments into a treatment. That intervention could have been detox, residential treatment, a shelter bed, IOP. The goal of this program was to try to reduce the population in DLC, right? We needed room at our methadone clinics for other folks. This is also a group that, as I told you, traditionally part of their addiction was, I'll just take the 90 days of the 6 months, clean up, and come back out onto the street, right? Well, 75% of the folks that disposed of their TPP cases did not receive a period of incarceration. Our failure to appear rates, almost 60% did not include a failure to appear. 71% did not get a new arrest. Now, I want you to know our average is better than that in Connecticut, but we're measuring everyone from someone we may have interviewed as a first-time offender DWI. Did they show up? To someone that was released on a very serious charge, right? But this was the group that we're measuring here that had a history of failing to appear. So we weren't discouraged in any way by these numbers. The importance of MAT, right? So that was something that we wanted to measure. And we can't force any of our clients to go to get on MAT, but I thought it was important to show the successful completion rate of clients with a primary opioid dependence. So those that we were able to talk into MAT, 70% of those individuals successfully completed this program. Those that did not accept MAT, only 45% completed. So MAT works.
So I only have positive things to say, which is a good thing. So I was blessed. So I'll tell you a little bit about my situation. So you guys, whoever's looking, reading, or seeing this knows my background. So I was in violation of probation and I got pulled over and I was arrested. And I was in court for my arraignment, and Caroline C. happened to be in court that day, and I was a client at New Prospects prior to this visit here a few years back, and Caroline happened to be my counselor when I was here. So she saw my name on the court roster, for lack of better terms, and because my name is so unique, she recognized my name. And quite frankly, she saved me from going to jail by getting into the TPP program, which is great. So I came into TPP a little stubborn, as you might know. I'm an addict, so I didn't necessarily want to get into the inpatient program, but in my heart, I knew I needed to come here. And I will say that Caroline has came here to visit me twice. Alicia has called me while I'm here to check in on me. It's a very compassionate, caring program. It's not as militant as I thought it was going to be. It's more of a softer, gentle, but yet tough love at the same time, which I need both of. Quite frankly, I was a little nervous going in there just because recovery is scary, but yet TPP has been very supportive in the sense where they don't make you feel ashamed about your addiction.
Everything I was told is coming true. There's no jail time. And, I wasn't looking to get sober either, you know. But something clicked, and I did my first 20 or detox, and I wasn't feeling any bad. You know, they helped me out in there. Had a good detox from alcohol, and then I went to a 28-day program, and then I went to a 90, and something clicked up there, and I wanted to stay longer, and I stayed for another month. And I had 8 months yesterday of not drinking.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
I go to meetings every day, and I got a sponsor and a home group, and I make coffee, and life's good. I mean, I'm doing good, you know.
I wanted to ask you a question about TPP and how you feel it has benefited you in your recovery.
Well, for me, it has so far. Everybody's supportive. I'm like extremely loving the opportunity that I have gotten for getting this program. I was in court one day and I thought I was done. I thought I was like going to jail, and because this was actually my third strike, like, and Caroline, who's the director of TPP, interviewed me, and once she finished interviewing me, like, she gave me hope, something that I did not have, and somebody who was actually supportive in a long time, had my back in a long time, that I did not have that in a while. So I was glad that, I met her, and when I went in front of the judge, I still was a little bit unsure of, whether this judge is going to allow me to take this program because of my background, or whatever the case may be. So when he said yes, we're going to give her a shot and see what the outcome can be with this program. I was grateful for that. So once I started the program, all the staff was welcoming. Like I said, everybody was supportive, and that's what I need. That's what I need, and so far, everything is good. I'm in this inpatient program now, which I've never been in an inpatient program. For me right now, I'm a little nervous because I want to keep a lot in. I don't communicate well with others as far as with my feelings and stuff like that. So as you can see, this is one of the things that the program has helped me with. A little bit more communication, a little bit more communicative, and I still have more to learn, but it's going great, and I give my thumbs up to TTP.
I mentioned before that on a monthly basis in all 8 locations, we meet as a team and we talk about the cases, the ones that are struggling, the ones that are doing well. So these are formal reoccurring monthly meetings. The attendees, there are pretrial services, our recovery coach, our clinician, probation officer, chief probation officer, our regional managers, and I try to attend every one of them. One of the things I want to just go back quickly and explain was that part of that BJA grant was an in-kind contribution from the branch. And our in-kind contribution was intensive pretrial supervision officers. These are probation officers because the things that we needed to do with this population on the pretrial end was we needed to get into their homes at times. We needed to get out into the field and check on them at times. That's not something that pretrial services can do. They're a non-hazardous duty position, so we needed probation there. So there's a formal agenda. We talk about the cases. We talk about those that are struggling. Somebody may have an idea that worked with another client during that hour session. We talk about the high-risk cases and the upcoming court dates. And then the sites meet informally on a weekly basis. A lot of the sites are seeing their clients, probation officer, clinician, recovery coach. They're seeing the client at the same time, which is the perfect kind of recipe, in my opinion, for success when they see that we've got a group of individuals supporting them. But one of the things that we added a couple of years ago was that there were a number of people that came a long way, real long way. I think early on when they either had some struggles and we weren't sure they were going to make it. So one of the things that I asked was that those folks that kind of are standing out and have done well, bring them to the meeting. So we bring them into the meeting and we just talk to them and we ask them what was different this time than the last 10 times they tried. And then we basically tell them, hey, we're proud of you. You're doing a great job. We're proud of you. And you'd be surprised at the smiles on their face because along the way, a lot of these individuals, no one's ever patted them on the back. And sometimes that's all you need, So the teaming part, and it was highlighted in Dr. Cox's report, was probably, I think, one of the most, or one of the best things that we have with this program. Conditions of released supervision requirements, you enter into the clinically appropriate supervision level or the clinically appropriate level of care. So whether that be a detox, whether that be an inpatient program, whether they feel you can manage as an IOP, that's our goal. Weekly visits by adult probation, which does include home visits. We work with the clinical team together. There's weekly drug screenings. And non-compliance reports are redocketed. Now, when I say that, non-compliance reports are redocketed, right? We got to know that this group is going to slip here and there, right? Nobody's going to think that someone that's been using for 15 years is not going to have a positive urine 3 weeks in, right? But if somebody doesn't show up to our office or doesn't leaves a residential treatment program, we're going to redocket that case and bring it to the court's attention. We're not going to redocket a positive urine. We're going to report that to the court. But our judges have given people extra opportunities, which is all right, right? In summary, opioid dependent clients present a greater need for detox. That was something that we definitely found. Our TPP population has a higher risk for non-appearance in court compared to our overall state pretrial population. Clients with the opioid dependence that engaged in MAT did a much better job. In between 2019 and 2023, over 90% of the clients were connected and attached to treatment within 1 business day. 2019, 44% of the successful TPP clients received an denial or a dismissal, and they came off of our dockets. And less than a quarter of all TPP clients with a disposed case were given a sentence that included incarceration. So 75% of these individuals did not go to the Department of Corrections. I'm going to talk quickly about this. We had 1,554 clients served and disposed. Okay, so when we started in 2015, one of the decisions we made is we wanted to count bed days. And how we count bed days is the day you're released to the day you dispose of your case or the day you're released until the day the judge puts a bond on you because you walked out of the program. So any day that you didn't vacate, we're counting, had that bed vacant. We used $129 as the cost savings to the Department of Corrections. That's what the cost savings was in 2019. I want you to know that this population is a little different. This is a population because of they're not regularly checking in with their doctor, will walk into the Department of Corrections with things like hepatitis C, high diabetes, a number of medical issues that really cost the state of Connecticut much more. The 129 was a figure in 2015, but I thought it was a conservative figure, and that's what we should use as the figure. So what I'm saying is I'm assuming that these folks would not have gone in, right? But we know, based on the research that we did, that this was a population that was just using DOC as kind of a filter to their addiction. So we knew they were going in. The majority of them are going in. So the $33 million that we're telling you that we saved is an estimate, right? But I also don't know that if this did, for those that we intervened and we got back on the right track, I can't tell you that they may have been incarcerated again as well, a number of times. So I want you to understand that's where we came up with that number. There's no crystal ball to really look at that. That could be a higher number, it could be a lower number, but I can tell you that we've saved DOC significant amount of savings.
And what I learned from them. My plan is to stay an AA member and to do service. And service and paying it forward and staying in the program is a vital component to how I will live going forward.
How long have you been abstinent now?
Approximately 380 days.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been setting goals this whole time, really. I never had my license or a permit or anything. You know, I got my permit a few weeks ago. I take the license test in June. I just bought a car.
Oh.
You know, I'm going back to school next semester, so I'm trying to find a job that will fit around that right now.
What are you going back to school for?
Drug and alcohol counseling.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Do you feel that you would have had these ambitions, these goals prior to the TPP program?
I don't, to be honest, I might have, but I wouldn't have felt like them. I wouldn't have felt like they were tangible, like they were reachable to me. You know, they would have just been a dream, basically.
You're in recovery. You are now 6 months abstinent. You're working towards sobriety. How are your relationships today?
They're good. They're great right now. My dad let me move back in his house.
Oh, great.
You know, and I wasn't even allowed near the house.
So your housing is stable now.
Yeah.
And he said, I see joy. I see joy in you that I haven't seen in a long time. That means a lot.
Before I end, I just want to thank a couple of people, and then I'll certainly take any questions that anyone has. But our external affairs division has just been a godsend. You know, they knew that this program means a lot to me, so they got me the audience that I was kind of looking for. So I appreciate that. So that's Melissa and Lee and Brittany. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the support I've had from our executive director Gary Wilbridge, and certainly Judge Pizzuto, and also to my new friend Kirsten over here. Without you, I would have screwed this whole thing up. So I appreciate that. And I'll be happy to take any questions that anybody has. Representative Walker.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. It's a breath of fresh air for me. I sit on the opioid advisory board. In fact, I chair the finance department section of it. And we just closed the portal because we were asking for recommendations for how we could allocate the funds. And I was disappointed because almost all of those dollars were just maintaining there was nothing beyond maintenance that I saw really, but this is beyond maintenance to me because you're giving people the opportunity to thrive again. The one thing that I really liked was the recovery coach. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan, and it's funny because I don't hear about recovery coaches as much as we should. I think we need to be a little bit more innovative in the way we do it, and also require at least once a week counseling or something in the way we go forward in addressing any addiction issues. You can't have one a month and expect to make an impact in anybody's life. Again, it's maintenance. And I think the value of the opioid settlement is to help Connecticut reduce the dependency and the need. So this is fantastic. So I have a couple of questions, just financial ones, just ones. How much did you get from the opioid settlement? Can I ask the last time? How much did you get for, you said you got money from the opioid district?
Kinsey, we received 160 per site for 2 years.
How many sites do you have?
4 sites.
4 sites, okay. And it was 160?
Yeah, and at the same time we were receiving, that was at the same time the other 4 sites were funded by the BJA federal grant.
Okay, okay.
And both of those and June, the end of this fiscal year.
And you got additional dollars also from Demas too?
For the recovery coaches in the 4 sites that we were studying, the BJA sites, that was Bridgeport, New London, Burlington, and Rockford.
Quite a bit, okay.
But all 8 sites do have recovery coaches in Plymouth.
Are all of your work done in residential facilities, or is that the preferable way of delivering these services?
Depending on the level of needs, and that's up to the clinician.
Okay.
So based on that full assessment that they get, it'll determine if they need to start in a detox and then move to a residential. The benefit is that the cost of that, the number of these ABH providers that we contract with have entitlement structures. The majority of these folks that are coming through the courthouses are already on entitlements. They should be on. If they're not, they try to fix them up, and then we integrate them as quickly as possible to the right intervention.
Okay. Later on, I'll ask Judicial how many beds are available for this type of program. Do you know how many beds?
We're trying not to use judicial beds. We're trying to use community beds because these are folks out in the community.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that we haven't put people in judicial beds. When we found someone in crisis and there wasn't a community bed and we happened to have a bed, we would put them in those beds.
When we say community beds, are we talking Demas community beds?
Demas.
Okay. Okay. So I have one other. I mean, I just have to say, I'm sorry I was late. I just flew up from New Haven to get here just for this meeting. And I was so excited because I went to 1D and there's nobody there. So
if you're on Blocker, I will tell you that we did apply for the portal and
you did.
yeah.
I didn't see it.
It's there and it's been sent to the Alcohol Drug Policy Criminal Justice Subcommittee.
Okay. Okay. I'll have to follow that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I go. Thank you, Representative Walker, and I appreciate Representative Napoli, Representative Belinsky, Representative Cooley, Representative Poncello being here, and really appreciate Senator Winfield and Representative Staffs for being here. The last part of the video has quite an impression because you're only as happy as your saddest kid. And so not only does this affect the person who's addicted, but it affects their extended family. And it was frustrating when I worked in probation and you knew the problem was addiction and you couldn't get the person to bed, or you couldn't get them diverted and they end up locked up. And then you end up using, like you mentioned, Mr. Hines, DOC for MAT treatment. It's not effective because you're in and out, in and out, in and out. And when it comes to this program, and I did read up on it, and I actually listened to a podcast on the way up, trying to get myself in the right state of mind. Portugal does kind of the same thing. They've decriminalized drugs, which let's not talk about that right now, but when they find someone who's using, they offer them treatment or they offer them jail. You're doing that here, and you're taking the people who do want the help. When you've gotten them, you're getting them into inpatient beds, and then there's also a follow-up with outpatient.
Yes. Traditionally, you'll end up going into an inpatient and then scaling down to maybe IOP and then eventually to relapse prevention. And a lot of times the court doesn't want to, just because you finished an inpatient program, they still want those supports behind you. So they'll watch you for, 4 months, go from inpatient to IOP to relapse prevention to make sure that you stay on the right track. So yeah, and to your other point, Representative Callahan, there's some crazy stuff that goes on, right? And I can tell you, when we talk about the family effect, we had a woman, and this goes to Representative Walker's point about the recovery coaches in Bridgeport that was, doing well, was trying to get her child back from DCF. And at 9, she had a bad day with DCF on a Friday. When I say, they just didn't think it was time yet. She was in the program, and 9 o'clock at night, our clinician recovery coach got a call from her, and she just wanted to tell him she was sorry, but she had to leave the program because, this was, I was trying to straighten out, and I'm not going to get my child back. And 9 o'clock at night, clinician, recovery coach drive to the program, and they talk her into staying. And that woman ended up being our guest speaker at our pretrial service annual meeting that we have at the end of the year because she came a long way, and she was ready to leave, but we try to talk them into staying, and we don't save them all, right? Right. We do our best to save as many as we possibly can.
I appreciate that, and a couple other comments, Mr. Hines. And what struck me too is getting the people into treatment quickly. I've actually been in that car where you're driving the person to treatment, you stop at a stop sign and they're gone. That's how you, Dr. Cox, you're nodding your head, it happens. And to have the support staff to have these clients know that they're going to get the type of support to get them into treatment, to follow up and not drop them. You talked about opioids, and one of the gentlemen speaking on the video talked about alcohol. Is it primarily opioids? Is it?
It's primarily opioids, but there's a mix of alcohol, and alcohol has taken a toll on a number of the folks that come into us. And the benefit that we have is, we have the opportunity to dose them as well. We're using Vivitrol right now, so a shot of Vivitrol to try to curb that in the MAT clinics that we send them to. But these people have issues. They have, we have clients that have taken a shot of Vivitrol and went home, and after cleaning out their closet, they drink rubbing alcohol, right? We have a client like that. I got so many stories, but I don't have all day. But I mean, these are people that we watch, and 4 months we didn't give up on this lady either. She struggled. She drove us crazy. We didn't give up on her, and she's in a good place today. So,
And you talked about there's the judicial component is probation's involved. Is it a 24/7 officer?
it is.
It is, and they're and if they're not compliant and they get redocketed, how many times can that happen? Or
Depending on what they did, Representative Callahan, you talk about the stop sign, right? And somebody jumps out. Well, that's happened to us. I'm not trying to fool anyone. So that person's getting redacted and probably ending up in the Department of Corrections. But there's other people that have done well for, a month and then have a slip, and they're positive for fentanyl. We bring them back to court. We report that to the court. But the court doesn't lock that individual up. They have a conversation with them, as do we, and we move on.
and this is a pretrial program, but it's also available to people who have records.
It's primarily we're looking for the person that has the extensive record that filtered through our courts. Things like larceny, things like criminal trespass, things like possession, but nothing violent in their past.
But otherwise, they're probably jail bound, either
No-
pretrial or
no-
post conviction.
No doubt about it. But for this program, very few would have been diverted based on their criminal history.
Well, the presentation was well done. It is informative. The videos hit right at the right time it almost answered my questions. I'm surprised I have any left, but I can't stand seeing money wasted, but this seems more like an investment than anything else. And I'm hoping you can bring it to your leadership, Representative Walker, and we certainly, I will talk to ours about it. And it's a program that speaking from experience, the frustration of not being able to get someone off the drugs that's causing the behavior. Sometimes it's part of the cause, but it certainly is a major obstacle to people being successful. And when they realize a week later in jail, they should have taken advantage of this. This seems to be the program that makes that happen ahead of time, so they don't have to get convinced after they've been in jail. So,
Thank you.
all right, I appreciate it.
Thank you for a pretty inspirational story. And Rep Callahan used the word that came to my mind immediately when we were in the orientation and running through the slides, which is investment. You know, you're not going to hit everybody. 44% is, you know, the success rate. But I mean, I also see a level of involvement and personal commitment on the part of you and the people that are administering the program right now. Ultimately, we're always looking for something that works. When we scale this up, because we continue to talk about it, you know, just being at 4 locations, how do we maintain the quality? How do we maintain the stable of people that care enough to follow each of these? You know, I won't even call them inmates, or I'd like to call them patients. Because if we can solve the problem, we can, you know, do something magical, and you can, you know, the stories about reuniting with family and all the rest of that kind of stuff. I mean, those are moving. So how do we take your heart and scale that up?
I think by finding the right folks to be part of that teaming group that I talked a little bit about, you know, there are times when we do these teaming meetings and we, you know, do non-teams. It's interesting to see, a client leaving a clinician's office while we're discussing clients, right? And they walk by, like they'll walk by and you'll hear either a recovery coach or a probation officer who happens to be in the building at the time thank them for coming, right? So you need when I say that, you need the right people in the right places. And do I attend all these meetings? As many of them as I can, I do. This probably sounds a little crazy, and Judge Zudo, but for me to hear a story from one of these people we bring in, that's better than my paycheck.
Yeah, I mean that's
And I know Representative Callahan knows what I'm talking about, right? So like when you get a letter from somebody on probation that says, "You changed my life, thank you," you put it up on your wall. So when you're having a bad day, you look at the letter.
Yeah.
That's all. But I do think that you need the right people that, you know, first of all, believe in that. And we have a lot of good people that work for us that do believe in that. So I think that's the success. We do have 8 sites right now. We're hoping to keep all of those 8 running. Yeah.
I commend that, and I, you know, I'm personally am privileged to be sitting here with somebody like Rep Callahan and Rep Walker, and to have you know, folks, you know, like the good senator from New Haven that have spent their lives trying to turn to diversionary programs. because it's important to save the person if we can. So I like this. Now, when we let me put on our appropriations hat for just a half a second. We're gonna we conceivably we save the state $33 million or so in incarceration, et cetera, right?
From 15 to 23.
Mhm. I will visit with Rep. Walker because nobody knows the budget better than she does. But I'm curious as to see in the appropriations world what buckets we have in our budget, and the source of those funds and how they expire. And strictly in a business sense, I would love to know what our expense line is versus our $33 million savings line, because right there, you can create an incredibly compelling story. So, and I see that there's funding coming from from a bunch of different grant sources, from different departments, and even from, private companies like McKinsey. So, it would be nice to roll that all up and take a look at it, so that when we try to sell something like this, we actually have a package that is hard to say no to on its results and its return on investment. So, yeah, we, as legislators, we don't have too many meetings where, we come away feeling like, really hopeful and smiling and, watching people, emotionally attached to their program. The thank you in the hallway, that kind of stuff matters. So, I like what you're selling. And I look forward to working with other folks to try to figure out if we can, can scale it up and make it so that you don't have to come back every single year with the funding pitch. I appreciate that.
Want to thank everybody for doing the presentation. This is very informative. I basically have a comment. This is for my fellow members. My mom spent her career as a psychologist dealing with addiction. She got her doctorate when I was a teenager, so I got dragged along for a lot of stuff, and I learned a lot. Not anything that I wanted to do professionally. I became a historian. But when you mentioned the warm handoff, I think that is one of the most key things here. And we have to keep that, whatever the form is when we appropriate, we have to keep the warm handoff, because that is the moment you are most likely to lose the client. And the opioid addiction's been brutal. I don't think there's many families in the state that don't have a personal connection to it. But there've been so many families where they have a family member, relative who's supposed to go into rehab, and it's a cold handoff, and they go and do the last party, and that's the last party. So however we deal with this, we have to maintain the warm handoff. That, I think, is one of the crucial things that makes this program successful. And I'm pretty much sure that anybody that deals with addiction services knows how important that is, that the agreement of I will go into rehab to that moment they walk in. If it's cold, the percentage and probability of failure goes up huge. If it is a warm handoff, the probability of success goes up dramatically. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because we're going to deal with this, and there's going to be pressure to nickel and dime here. Can we save a little bit here, save a little bit there? That, I think, is one of the most crucial things that you've put into this program, that warm handoff, that greatly increases the probability of success for that individual client. So I just wanted to really stress that, as we deal with this going forward. And I'm hoping that members on both sides of the aisle will come together to make this program, which is being successful, is saving the state money, is turning around lives, that we don't lose that component, because I think it is so crucial. And if I didn't say that, my mom would probably come from the other side and kick my butt right now. So I just wanted to really emphasize how important that warm handoff is in any success. And again, thank you very much for the presentation. I want to thank all the other members of the General Assembly who were here today for being here.
Thank you.
I have a question for you over here. And I appreciate all of my colleagues' comments. I wasn't here for the video. It sounds like it was something I should go back and look at. And we too often nickel and dime the things that actually help people's lives. So I agree we shouldn't do that with this. In terms of the program, it sounds like it's has good effectiveness. I guess my question is, in your slides, it talks about where Connecticut sits in terms of the country, and that we are significantly higher. And I think that has an impact on the need to continue doing the things that you are doing successfully. Is it? Can you orient me as to why that's the case, right? Why we sit where we sit as it relates to the rest of the country? I think if we're looking at having a complete story here, that's just as important as the work you do at the point where you do it. And if you can you point me to who's going to help me with that? Right. I want to make sure that you have what you need, but I want to make sure that you need less.
I do not, and I'd like to be able to answer that question for you. These are some of the stats that Dr. Cox was able to get for us when we started our BJA evaluation. I don't know why we're higher. I do know that if you take a look at a heat map, New England seems to be higher than the rest of the area. And but one of the reasons that we ended up in Danielson with the McKinsey money was that area that is like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Danielson, just really sticks out as a really tough spot to on overdoses. But I don't know. I'd like to answer that question, but I really don't know the answer why we're higher than other locations. We're situated between New York and Boston, but
Look, I appreciate that. I didn't expect that you necessarily had the answer, but I thought you might. And when I look at the numbers that you presented, it's not just the case that we're high. It looks like we're about 140 to 150% higher. That's significant. And I think that has huge impact on what we can do, whether your program is successful or not. And I think we should investigate that as much as anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your presentation was very informative and certainly very helpful. Just a couple of questions that I have. After completion of the program or after the clients graduate, is there still a connection with the TPP program? Are there check-ins? Are there any kind of service available for those who might need it after they have completed it?
So one of the things, the relationship between the provider and the client that we send to the program, a lot of times that doesn't go right. Even with the 44% of the people in that study that ended up receiving a dismissal or an out, even if you receive a dismissal or an out, you're still connected to that ABA provider. It's up to you and the provider try to keep that going. Many individuals will end up continuing with relapse prevention. And when they built that relationship with that program and the clinic that they're in. So many of them do. The other group that does not receive a period of incarceration, you get a period of probation. And in our case note system, they'll see that those individuals have been through this, and I'm sure we'll continue to track them and allow them to, or order them to continue with the ABA.
Yeah, that's great. And is there any focus or emphasis on job placement or job training for some of these individuals?
So we're very fortunate. We have other contractors, alternatives in the community. That's another program that we can refer folks to for those types of services. So although the condition is treatment pathway program from the bench, we can add conditions as we move forward. The one thing we don't want to do is kind of interfere with the intervention that they're in and kind of overwhelm them. So we kind of try to get them to that relapse prevention stage before we then refer them to one of our AICs for an employment.
Great. Again, thanks for all the work that you guys are doing.
One or two more questions. First of all, what is IOP?
Intensive outpatient.
Ah, okay, I didn't, alphabet gets me a little confused. One of the things that I'm curious about is CSEU is part of this program. What are we doing to train students coming up in this program? Because there is a very, very big shortage of people, clinicians in these fields. So we've got a wonderful program and we've got a wonderful college. I want to hear how are we working together to train our students if that's possible. I mean, it's natural that we want to do it because we want to build the workforce that addresses the problems that we have.
Representative Walker, that's a great question. I wish I had an answer to that. I'm a professor at CCSU, and so I know with our nursing program, we have a very popular marriage and family counseling program. And so I know President Toro has been trying to increase those and provide more resources for those. So, I mean, my limited knowledge would be that those are students that hopefully would end up in these ABA providers. And I know CSSD and the provider network has been wonderful at hiring a lot of the CCSU alumni.
I just want to make sure that we make that a very real component of it because we owe it to our young people coming out of college to show them that there are so many other fields that they can go into in a variety of different ways. And this is something that obviously is not going to go away in 5 minutes. So therefore, we have to have a workforce to address the needs of each one of your pods that you create and also give us an opportunity.
Never
But it's good. He listened and said, I got to go over and correct that. But you know, I just want to keep talking about how we need to connect with our colleges on all of these wonderful programs that we create in Connecticut. I mean, they can go to other states with this information and work there too. So thank you for that. And I hope we can continue that conversation going forward. To me, it's really, really important for our students. So thank you. And the other part that I would say is that, yes, I hear my colleagues, they want to see the savings. They want to understand. And we want to see the savings. We've got to make sure that what we're doing is we're reinvesting those savings into the programs that we know are working, not allowing them to be absorbed into some other things that we haven't really validated. But in DOC, we have a high number, and my colleague, my co-chair of approach with me, we always talk about the fact that many of the people incarcerated in our system have mental health issues. And we have a hard time differentiating between mental health and addiction. A lot of times the addiction comes along with mental health because they self-medicate. So this is a bigger conversation and we have to look at how are we addressing all of them if we want to make a major impact. I thank you so much for this conversation and look forward to having many more. I think this is a good thing for Connecticut and we got to lower those numbers as Senator Winfield said. Why are we so high? We're a little bitty state. We are so high, and we know where they are too. I mean, we know where the groups are. We've got to address some of the inequities in those areas in the communities too. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.